Okay, let's put this to rest. Shortwave is not dead. And we'll talk a little bit about scanners. This is Jeffrey, AD7LN. Welcome back to the radio room. Okay, well, numerous times throughout the years, I have seen on the internet different forums for shortwave radios, shortwave portable radios, posts such as, why bother? Why bother getting a new, or why bother getting a shortwave radio? There's nothing out there anymore. Oh, I used to listen to the shortwave radio many years ago, but there's just nothing out there anymore. All the big name international broadcast stations are out. They're gone. That's not true. Yes, some stations did close down. And any SWL operator, shortwave listener, will tell you, yes, they're saddened by some of the stations that did close down. However, there's still a multitude of international broadcast stations out there, among a big list of other stuff that's on the shortwave frequencies, and nobody even pays attention to any of that. And I think it's time that someone should make a list just to show people, hey, no, there's a lot out there on shortwave right now, and I think we should go through it. So, say you're thinking about getting into shortwave, or you've dabbled with a shortwave radio but didn't really pick anything up. Well, chances are is because you were on shortwave and you didn't have an external antenna hooked to the antenna on the portable shortwave, or say you were running an SDR, software-defined radio or receiver, and the antenna wasn't outside. You need a long antenna, long wire antenna. The lower you go in frequency, the longer the antenna has to be. And any ham radio operator knows that by heart, because even in the technician class testing, they teach you how to build a simple dipole and how to do the mathematics to convert the length of the dipole to match the frequency transmitting. So, if it's a portable, a desktop model, a software-defined receiver that plugs into a computer, which is still a receiver, you still need the antenna, a long antenna, if you're going to be listening to HF, high frequency, 1.8 to 30 megahertz. That's HF, or shortwave. You could be using an amateur radio, an actual ham radio designed for HF transmissions, and many of these HF radios have a wideband open receiver that allows you to receive all the way down into long wave and up to 30 megahertz, sometimes even up to 60 megahertz. But no matter what, you got to have a long antenna, and it's got to be, it really needs to be outside and above ground. Some folks have figured out how to make a long wire antenna just wrapping it around the walls inside of a room, and they seem to receive okay that way. Which, you know, that's through trial and error. That's what radio is all about. If your length of wire is too long outside, hooked up to your portable, and you get overloading, well, you can either shorten the length of the wire or if it has an attenuator, adjust the radio by touching the attenuator, see if that helps, or an RF gain, turn down the RF gain. You just have to experiment a little bit. And for those that are just starting out, you've got an antenna on your radio, now what? Well, if it's daytime, start around 10 megahertz and go up. But you have to tune very slowly. It's not like an AM or FM dial where you just spin really quickly and you hear each individual station of those umpteen stations that are local. You have to tune slow, sometimes fine tuning, because you'll miss a whole bunch that's out there. International broadcast, well, we'll get into that. Anyway, daytime, 10 and up. This is just a standardized way of getting people to actually hear something on a shortwave radio. Come nightfall, try 10 and down. Now, it doesn't mean that you won't hear anything up here at night, because you can. But the way radio waves work for night and day, you will find that signals come in stronger from 10 up in the daytime and 10 down at night. There's a favorite radio station of mine that I like to listen to on 15.720, which is Radio New Zealand, which I'm up here in Oregon. I hear it plain as day in the afternoon and up into night, sometimes until it shuts down about 10 or 11 o'clock my time here. However, if I wanted to, I can tune down here and hear lots of international broadcasts further below 10. So, and just to say, even though this looks small, 1.8 to 30 megahertz, just a segment between 5 and 6, or 8 and 9, just that small segment, there can be numerous things going on anywhere up in here. You never know where it's going to be or what's going on. That's why you have to tune slow, tune very slow. So, what is out there? Well, we've already discussed international broadcast. And there's probably a minimum of, I'd say maybe 87 individual broadcasters worldwide. There may be much more, but it's just a round figure, semi-round. And the international broadcasts are meant for worldwide listeners as well as for transmitting to their own country side. Some countries don't have a local AM or FM radio station for someone to tune in and listen to the news or what's going on in the country. Sometimes the only information that they can gather is from a shortwave radio. So they need that international broadcast station that's going on from some part of their country. Of course, there's ham radio operators, and they have designated bands where they will speak and communicate. throughout the HF band, throughout the shortwave band. And you can hear them in different modes, whether it's AM or FM or sideband or various digital modes or slow scan TV, because they like to communicate in different variations and experiment with radio. And they also transfer communications for emergencies. Pass along information and whatnot. On the HF band, there's also aviation. Because when airliners are above the Pacific Ocean and not above land, or if they're over the Atlantic Ocean, not above land, they need a way of radio communications to land. And their VHF radio transmission will not reach due to the curvature of the Earth. So they need HF or shortwave. There are various bands that they talk on, depending on the solar conditions and how the ionosphere is at that point. And if you're into receiving that kind of stuff, here I have a website for you to check out. It's radio.arinc.net. Not only do they have maps, they have frequencies on the maps telling you what frequencies the airplanes will be using when they're flying over certain parts of the Earth. And it'll be on the HF shortwave band. So take it from there, that's fun. Also, marine. There's a tremendous amount of marine communications going on. Ship to shore, ship to ship, emergency communications to Coast Guard, Coast Guard talking to ships, shore transmitting weather information to ships almost on an hourly basis, and in CW and in digital and in voice. And I'll tell you what, middle of the night, listening to shortwave, you come across a fishing boat talking to another fishing boat on, I think it was upper sideband. I don't remember what frequency it was. Somewhere around possibly 8 megahertz. I think I heard the dirtiest jokes I've ever heard in my entire life being transmitted from ship to ship because they were so bored at night. Anyway, there's a tremendous amount of marine traffic 24/7 around the world. Tremendous amount of aviation traffic 24/7 around the world. You're always going to find a lot of aviation and marine traffic, especially when you're tuning around late at night. It's always out there. Next would be military. And for the United States here, we have something called EAM, which they transmit on specific frequencies in a coded message. The message dealings, as far as we know, are for nuclear weapons handling. Not knowing what they're transmitting or what the message actually is, other than it's a coded message. Usually from land to air or land to sea. Usually it's a one-way message. Once in a great while you'll hear them return a message back to land. Very interesting stuff to listen to. lately, this is the year 2022, there has been a lot of EAM traffic here in the past few months. Department of Defense, FEMA, HFGSC or GCS, excuse me, Air Force and some Navy. Not just the United States. A lot of other countries do use HF for military. Some of it could be encrypted, some digital and encrypted, but it's still fun to listen around and find it. Time stations. So here in the United States we have the WWV and the WWVH. This one is in Colorado. This one is in Hawaii. The Colorado station is a male voice telling you what time it is, 24 hours, 7 days a week. WWVH Hawaii station is a female voice. Same applies, 24/7. They also transmit at certain times of the hour what the station is about, if they transmit anything about severe weather conditions or anything of extreme nature to those that are in marine situations. There are other time signals besides the ones here for the United States. There's one in Canada that's out in Ontario. There's the BPM China station, the BSF Taiwan, JJY Japan, and the DCF 77 for Germany. And they all have different frequencies. Some are the same frequency as others. The time signals for the United States is 2.5, 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. The 25 megahertz, however, is sometimes off the air. It's more of an experimental frequency. It used to be full time on 25 as well as the other frequencies, but now you can't quite count on 25 megahertz being on the air all the time. But the others, yes, they're always on. 2.5, 5, 10, 15, 20, and 20. And 20. Great way for those in the United States to test out the receive capability of a specific shortwave radio right off the bat, plugging in 2.5 or 5 or 10 or 15 megahertz into the frequency of the radio and seeing how well it comes in, and seeing if the Colorado station is the one you hear or if you hear the Hawaii station, or sometimes both, because they're both transmitting on the same frequency at the same time. However, because of the distance between the two, you'll hear a delay in the broadcast, usually kind of like an off echo, but sometimes Hawaii comes in stronger than Colorado here in Oregon. And if that's the case, you know that you're going to hear South Pacific stations very well, both international broadcast and ham radio stations. And your chances of hearing Asia are better. So, keep that in mind. Now, pirates. There are a multitude of pirate stations out there, anywhere between 3.3 megahertz up to 15 megahertz. However, most pirates, most of them, are between 6.8 and 7 megahertz, just a hair under 7. They know not to get into 7 megahertz because that's the start of a ham band in the Morse code region. But they will transmit music of their choice, sometimes comedy skits, and foul language. You'll hear a lot of foul language. Sometimes some good jokes. Once in a while, some of the stations at the end of their broadcast will send a slow scan TV signal, which you can receive, record if you have to, record it, play it back next to a slow scan TV decoder and see what image they send. Sometimes they're nasty images, so be warned. There's also DX pirates, or pirate DXing. And what these guys do is they have modified radios. They're either modified CB radios or modified ham radio radios. And they're talking to other pirates or illegal operators around the world to see how far their signal can get out. Sometimes they're running a lot of power, sometimes they're just running whatever the radio itself can produce. And the main objective for them is just to make contact with somebody else somewhere as far away as they can get their radio signal to travel. And you'll find a lot of these DX pirates started life as just a standard CB radio operator. Because CB radio operators pretty much do the same thing, only within the CB band. Also, there's spy transmissions, spy numbers. These are actual spies, even today, transmitting coded messages with letters and numbers in succession on certain frequencies throughout the day and the night, sending to who knows who, somewhere on the other side of the earth, being that it's on shortwave, the signal will travel. Many times these spies will connect their transmitter up to something large and metal to make as their antenna, such as an AM broadcast tower antenna, or an FM broadcast tower antenna, or maybe even a steel bridge to use as an antenna. And these spies sending these spy transmissions, number stations, they're all over the world. They can be here in the United States, Canada, South America, Mexico, Europe, Costa Rica, anywhere. And I even heard one many years ago, very local within the Oregon, Washington area. When I first bought one of my portable shortwave radios, middle of the daytime, I had to turn the RF gain down and still got a full signal with just the telescopic aerial pulled up inside of a house, hearing that signal full scale and plain as day. So it had to be within 20 miles of my radius, or 20-mile radius of my location. Sending Spanish letters and numbers in a female voice. It sounded recorded. Anyway, many people really get into spy numbers and listen around the internet, or not the internet, but the shortwave frequencies for those spy numbers. So the spy transmissions, which spy numbers have been around since World War I. There's a whole hobby based around spy number operators and those that listen to the spy numbers. Let's see, also out on the airwaves there are extremists, which I can kind of put this into a whole bundle here, political and rebels. Many times a certain part of a country is being taken over by a rebel clan or extremists. They will take over a TV station and a radio station, and they will transmit their own propaganda, their own information, whether it's true or false, just to show their dominance in the feat that they've created. So sometimes you'll hear that out there on the shortwave bands. Religious broadcasts, of course. They are everywhere and 24/7. You can almost count on them being on a certain frequency at a certain time of day or night. So you will run into those religious broadcasts. Also, there is something called the buzzer. The pip. And the squeaky wheel. I'm running out of space here. These three transmitters are supposed to be out of Russia. However, Russia denies that they exist. They seem to be owned by the military, or run by the military of Russia. They've been transmitting for many years. I believe the buzzer's been around since the 70s, the pip since 1985. I'm not sure about the squeaky wheel. However, current day, they're still transmitting. Because they are Russian and because of the current conflict going on, you will find that some of these transmissions are getting jammed by other countries or other radio operators just to hinder any Russian dealings with the military. Okay, next on the list is radio jamming, and you will find that you will find some radio jamming on the airwaves. For instance, North Korea. They jam most any signal that's too close to their country so that only the people in that country hear what the leader wants them to hear. There are other instances of radio jamming in Europe as well, and what it sounds like basically is two signals on top of each other. And just be prepared to hear that. You will hear it on shortwave. Next would be satellite, ham radio, amateur radio. Sometimes you will hear some beaconing, either on 21 or 29 megahertz. Many satellites used to beacon, not even ham radio related, just standard satellites. They would transmit between the 19 and 20 megahertz range. But once in a great while, if there is any satellite transmissions for HF, it'll be there in the 21 or 29 megahertz range. It'll probably be a beacon or something in digital. Okay, of course, the CB radio, which is the 27 megahertz band area. I think it's 26.965 to 27.405. It's AM and sideband. I believe that the government, the United States government, just okayed FM for the CB radio folks. So now they have AM, FM, and upper and lower sideband. On shortwave, there is the over the horizon radar. Makes a very strange, loud noise, and the frequency shifts as the radar is operating. It's a bugger. You can't really do anything about it when they're using it. You will hear it from time to time. Different countries use it. There used to be something called the GMDSS for marine use. It's a global maritime distress and safety system. However, lately, the international group for maritime has tried to shift everyone to satellite, to a satellite system that is automated. So it's no longer done by hand by actual operators sitting at a radio and waiting and listening. So this is kind of out the door now and done by an automated satellite system. Let's see here. There's the International Beacon Project. which is website ncdxf.org. They transmit in Morse code on 5 different frequencies in a 3-minute cycle. There are 18 locations around the world, and they transmit at 100 watts at the beginning of this transmission, then 10 watts and 1 watt and 100 milliwatts, so that you can track and see who's transmitting and where and how well you're hearing it, depending on what the wattage of that transmission is at that time. Go to this website and read more about it. It's a pretty cool thing. The W1AW, the ARRL headquarters in Connecticut, they send out on shortwave Morse code practice for those that want to learn Morse code. Bulletins, Keplerian elements for space communications. DX bulletins, emergency communications. If it's emergency, they will transmit those emergency communications hourly from the W1AW radio headquarters. There is the Alaska emergency channel. Or emergency frequency, I should say, which is 5.1675 on upper sideband. Very large state. They need a frequency to cover the whole state. There's also one for trappers, which is 4.441 upper sideband. They have a nightly check-in, make sure that everybody's okay. That's also shortwave. There's marine HF weather. Once a day on, let's see, 4 or 5 different frequencies on upper sideband, both in French and English, coming from a Monaco radio station. There are other radio stations as well that transmit marine weather in CW and voice and various digital forms all around the world, so that all those that are in ships have some sort of weather information to forecast which way they need to go to get away from the bad weather. And weather satellite images that are rebroadcast over HF, same thing applies for those out in the Pacific or the Atlantic or wherever they're at. They need to be able to forecast which way to go and to stay away from storms. So they need these satellite images that are being rebroadcast from different land-based stations that have received the satellite signal at 137 megahertz. So that's a fair list. I could probably come up with more information to make a list even longer. But is shortwave dead? No. Far from it. So, what do you think? Let's do the scanner stuff now. For those that are possibly planning on getting a scanner, or those that are new to the scanner world, things have changed in the past couple of years drastically for scanner operators, and it's mainly due to many cities throughout the United States have changed from an analog transmission for police, from analog to a digital, and some have even gone digital and encrypted, depending on the city. Once the encryption process has been turned on, there's really no way for, legally no way, to receive those signals any longer. And so the first thing that anybody should do if they're planning on getting into scanners, specifically for listening to police in your area, the very first thing you should do is go to radioreference.com. And look up your state and then your county and your city. And on this website, they will show the frequencies that are being used by your police in that area and what mode of transmission it is, whether it's an analog signal, if it's digital, if so, what kind of digital? Is it a version of P25, phase 1 or phase 2? Is it the NXDN? Is it DMR? Is it Moto Turbo, Motorola EDAX? You need to know that, because if it's not encrypted, but they have changed to a digital platform or format, you have to make sure that the scanner you're going to purchase can decode that particular mode of transmission. The old style analog scanners will not be able to handle any kind of decoding of any digital formats. For instance, here's a brand new, almost brand new Whistler. However, it's analog only. In order to receive most of those digital formats, you need to go something like this, a Uniden BCD 436 HP, or the 536 HP, which is the mobile version. There's also as far as Uniden is concerned, there's the brand new models such as the SDS 100 and the SDS 200 mobile. There's two different home patrols that may be able to handle some digital formats. You'd have to go to the website, the manufacturer's website, and check prior to purchasing. So yeah, two things. Go here to see what your local police are using for a format of transmission, and then think about what scanner you want to use and see if that particular scanner can handle decoding that particular format if you plan on listening to police. If you don't plan on listening to police, then you're more freed up to use different scanners that are out there. However, I found it very easy and convenient to get a particular Uniden like this BCD 436, because there's a program that you can download called Sentinel, and the Sentinel program is a go-between between the radio and this website and their database. And every Monday, this database on radioreference.com updates. And you can update the most current frequencies and information into the scanner so that any changes that are made anywhere in the United States will be updated into that scanner. And the Sentinel and Uniden setup goes for the BCD 436 HP and the 536 mobile, the SDS 100, SDS 200, and the 2 different home patrol models. As far as whistlers, whistler radios, they have a different program, but will still reference the radioreference.com database, and it's called Easy Scan. And this software is it's free, but it's only for whistlers and the entry-level Graycom scanner that first came out. That was the PSR 800. Can also use the Easy Scan. But as far as whistlers, it's the TRX -1, the TRX-2, and I believe the 1095 and 1098 also has a Easy Scan version that will reference the radioreference.com database. So this is Whistler products that can go to Radio Reference, and then for Uniden, it's Sentinel, the program, and that works for the 436, the 536, the 100, and the 200, and 2 different home patrol models. I think it's Model 1 and Model 2. This is SDS, BCD, BCD. So yeah, if you want to get the most updated and current information on a weekly scale, you either want to go with these models or these models for scanner listening. But you will find that some cities, some states have moved to digital, a specific form of digital, and some cities have moved, or police have moved to encrypted. And once that happens, you just can't listen to the police. But you will still find that other emergency services will not go encrypted, such as fire, medical, search and rescue, ambulance, your and such. Yeah, so I think for starting out, that's some pretty good information for those that are thinking about getting into police scanners. Keep this information in mind. Always go to radioreference.com first, and then the manufacturer's website second on which scanner you're thinking about purchasing, to see if it will handle and decode the police in your area. And that's about it for now. Any questions about what we've gone over today? Feel free to leave a comment. And I'll catch you guys on the next Elmer Time. Thanks for joining me on Elmer Time number 10. And this is Jeffrey, AD7LN. I'm clear. Thanks a lot.